Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Brunswick on Wabanaki land we now call Brunswick, Maine. My name is Faith Woodman, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Today is Sunday, July 9, 2023. Peter Blatchley, a familiar figure to many of us here, is leading the service and also providing today's music. His reflection is, what is healing within a sick society? In the interest of safety, please note that there are 3 exits to the building. One is through the door you came in through and directly behind you. The second exit is on your right, just past the front of the AV room. And the third exit is in the back of the building, past the kitchen and the RE rooms. The after-church brown bag lunch that was scheduled for noon today has been canceled due to the questionable weather. Also, the men's group is meeting Wednesday at 6 p.m. at the library. Finally, for those of you who are here in person today, please silence your cell phones. Welcome. We are so very happy to have you here.
Good morning. Today's chalice lighting. Oh, got something. Today's reading for the chalice lighting, Blessed is the Fire That Burns Deep in the Soul, was written by Eric A. Heller Wagner. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life. This morning, we are honored to have as our speaker and musician Peter McDonald Bletchley, who is the nephew of the late Daphne Holden, a longtime member of our church, and Dr. and Mrs. Peter Howitt on his mother's side. Father's side, mother's side. Daphne is your mother's side. Father's side. Father's side. I'll get it. And I've read this many times already, but I can't seem to get it right. His lifelong quest for answers to life's big questions has encompassed philosophy, religion, yoga, meditation, music, art, science, politics, and psychology. Peter is a modern Renaissance man. He is the author of many published articles and a memoir, The Inner Circle, My 17 Years in the Cult of the American Sikhs, Book 1. And Peter is also a trauma recovery coach and is in the middle of writing Book 2 of his memoirs, tracking his own search for authenticity in the journey of recovery from a religious cult. Today's hymn lyrics were written by Daphne's grandfather, and I assume Peter's great-grandfather, Jonathan Oatman Jr., and was set to music this year by Peter, and there's a note in the where you can access music if you want to hear more of it on the web. It's in the service. So we're very, very happy to have Peter here and get a chance to sing Reverend Oatman's hymns. He was a very prolific hymn writer. Daphne told me many years ago that he wrote hymns for $25 a piece. And he was under contract or sold his hymns to a hymnal publisher. So many of his hymns are still in the lexicon of many Christian churches' hymnals. So, Peter, welcome. Peter will lead us in our first hymn.
Good morning. Actually, it was $1 per hymn, not 25. And
Oh, it was $1?
well, that's the way I heard the story. He died a long time ago. He died 101 years ago, and much of his life has been lost. But this is my friend Kurt Greenstone accompanying me on bass. I think we need the microphone turned on. Can you hear me now? I have a very loud voice from singing rock and roll for 60 years. Okay, this is a very familiar hymn. The lyrics should be up on the board, but the tune is different. So see if you can follow along. 2, 3. When upon life's billows you are tempest-tossed, when you are discouraged, thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, count your many blessings, count your blessings, and then you will see what God has done. Are you ever burdened with a load of care? Does the cross seem heavy you are called to bear? Count your many blessings, every doubt will fly, and you will keep singing as the days go by. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, count your many blessings, count your blessings, and then you will see what God has done. When you look at others with their land and gold, think that God has promised you his wealth untold. Count your many blessings, money cannot buy your reward in heaven, nor your name on high. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, count your many blessings, count your blessings, and then you will see what God has done. So amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged, God is over all. Count your many blessings, angels will attend, help and comfort give you till your journey's end. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, count your many blessings, count your blessings, and then you will see what God has done. Let's try that verse again. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, count your many blessings, count your blessings, and then you will see what God has done.
Good morning. I'm Joel Austin, a member of your Pastoral Care team, here with this morning's joys. There are no concerns in the book this morning. Ward Clark writes, during Reverend Jane Dwinell's service about memory back in April, she told us about the book she'd written with her late husband, Sky Yardley. The book is Alzheimer's Canyon, one couple's reflections on living with dementia. Ward is writing, I asked the Curtis Library to purchase the book. On Friday, I was the first person to borrow it. If you'd like to see the book, I'll have it in the fellowship hall after today's service. Thank you, Ward. If you are not attending in-person services and would like a joy or concern read from the pulpit, you may send an email to UUCB joysandconcerns@gmail.com. That address is on the screen and in UUCB's weekly email. If you have a concern you would like to discuss in private, please speak with a pastoral care associate. We have light blue ribbons, most of us do, and we'd be happy to listen and to help. Thank you.
Good morning again. Please join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation as I read A Prayer of Risk by Tamara Lebac. Holy One who has given us the breath of life, today we remember to breathe deeply, to rest, to take in, to pause before we act, and then to take in another deep breath, poised on the edge, and risk jumping in. Risk taking action. Risk speaking up. Risk using the gifts we have been given so that at the end of our life, we can say with absolute clarity that no part of our existence was wasted in fear of failure or fear of success. Hold us. Prepare us the way to begin to offer the gift of our awakened presence, full of love and light today. These and the prayers of our hearts we lift up now in the silence. Amen. I've realized that I don't think I introduced myself, but this is a good time to because I'm not Sue Michaud. I'm Louise Gephardt. I'm a retiring member of the worship committee and a member of the Board of Trustees. And the reading today, Sue's not doing the reading. Don't worry, she's fine. She had unexpected family come and visit, so we gave her the day off. The reading today is from 1 Corinthians chapter 13. I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 6 from the King James Version of the Bible. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself. It is not puffed up. Doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not on her own. It is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth.
Jonathan Oatman Jr. was part of that old-time religion, and you'll get a taste of that with this anthem. We're told that a great day is coming, with the stars like a banner unfurled. But are you prepared for the judgment, if today were the end of the world? When the angel shall sound his great trumpet, on the clouds the Lord will descend. Then the cry will go out, time is over. Then the world with its turmoil will end. If the sun should be turned into darkness, and the stars in the heavens be hurled, how would it fare with you, brother, if today were the end of the world? If today were the end of the world. This world will not roll on forever, nor the moon in its orbit return. Then suppose, just suppose for a moment, that today were the end of the world. We all know that day will be coming. It's as sure as our birth in this world. We'll be standing before the great Maker to receive the judgment we've earned. If the sun should be turned into darkness, and the stars from the heavens be hurled, how would it fare with you, brother, if today were the end of the world? If today were the end of the world. He'll balance the deeds of a lifetime, the good and the bad that we've done, 'cause faith by itself is no virtue if our actions leave good deeds undone. The teachings are clear: love your neighbor, not only the ones that you choose. Give love and respect to the stranger, for the Lord may be wearing his shoes. If the sun should be turned into darkness, and the stars in the heavens be hurled, how would it fare with you, brother, if today were the end of the world? If today were the end of the world. We are told that a great day is coming, with the stars like a banner unfurled. But are you prepared for the judgment, if today were the end of the world? When the angel shall sound his great trumpet, on clouds the Lord will descend. Then a cry will go out, time is over, and the world with its turmoil will end. If the sun should be turned into darkness, and the stars from the heavens be hurled, how would it fare with you, brother, if today were the end of the world? If the sun should be turned into darkness, and the stars in the heavens be hurled, how would it fare with you, brother, if today were the end of the world? If today were the end of the world. Good morning again. It's wonderful to see you and to see some friends, old and new, people who have never been here before. I especially want to welcome James and Anita, who are sitting over here. They're from Yarmouth. And they're good friends, the Kaliki family, who are here from, is it Angola you started? And now living nearby. And this is their very first time in the UU Church, so I hope you'll all take time to welcome them and make them feel like the rock stars they really are. The theme of today's gathering is healing in a sick society, which begs the question of what is healing anyway. Gabor Mate, whose books have turned him into a superstar in the therapeutic world, notes that healing is not a destination, but rather a direction and a lifelong process. I like to think of it as the process of coming into one's authentic identity. But then, what is a true, authentic self? And how does this relate to living the 7 UU principles? I was told that it had to relate to that. I think it's worthwhile to revisit the principles themselves, especially for those who are here for the first time. So these are the 7 Unitarian Universalist principles by which we try to live our lives. The first is the inherent dignity and worth of every person. The second is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Next is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth within our congregations. Next is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Then the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Next, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And finally, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. I love these principles, and I notice that they are action-oriented. They are an expression of how to live and act within society, but in fact, don't they spring from inner qualities we think of as virtues? Dr. Richard Schwartz, who developed the internal family systems therapeutic model, names these as the inner qualities of the authentic self: compassion, courage, clarity, creativity, curiosity, connectedness, confidence, and calm. He adds to this rather clever group of words that all start with the letter C, another 5 that start with P, and he calls it presence, persistence, perspective, playfulness, and patience. There are dozens of other synonyms that could be used to say the same thing. I like to add honesty, humility, kindness, and doing no harm. But I like to simplify the concept to a single term springing from my own religious and spiritual background. So with apologies to the atheists and the fundamentalist Christians in the room, I call it Christ consciousness. This term may rub some people wrong, but I want to emphasize that it's very different from calling oneself a Christian. And I'm not using the term in a religious sense. Most major religions have their own founders, leaders, saints, and sages who achieved what I would call Christ consciousness, though maybe they won't call it that. St. Paul called it charity in his letter to the Corinthians, which we just heard in the reading. I personally think St. Paul missed a few things, and I think much of the Christian theology informed by his writings goes astray. He was, after all, deeply patriarchal, misogynistic, vengefully self-righteous, and unforgivingly judgmental of all those who did not profess themselves to be Christians or whose behavior fell short of his rigid, culturally informed moral code. But that's another reflection. I have a very personal basis for my views on this. My own mother was a very deeply religious person. But lying on her deathbed, wasting away from cancer at the age of only 61, she shared with me her realization that worshiping Jesus was not the essence of Christianity. Rather, I've never told anybody this. She said what was important was Christ consciousness, which she realized was at the core of her own and everyone else's identity. Core identity is not tied to vocation, race, culture, gender orientation, religious affiliation, educational achievements, titles, or any other aspects we might call the outer layers of identity. So if we can accept for a moment the stipulation that the 7 UU principles are rooted in what I call Christ consciousness, quite apart from traditional Christian theology, we can get to the most important question: what keeps us from living in Christ consciousness full time and from exemplifying the 7 UU principles in our words and actions? My own feeling is that the answer is actually rooted in psychology, especially in the impacts of our early childhood experiences. In psychological terms, each of us develops attachment styles that spring from our earliest childhood relationships with primary caregivers. John Bowlby, who developed attachment theory in the early 1950s, noted that these attachment styles lead to adaptations for survival that shape personality and reactions to the world around us. Perfectionist, caretaker, rebel, achiever, peacemaker, pleaser, bully, abuser. These and many other labels refer to adaptations and coping mechanisms which, like addictions and obsessions, can take control and eclipse our authentic sense of self. Psychologists make the point that the adaptations are developed very early in life and have a valid purpose when a child is facing threatening or traumatizing environments, such as alcoholic parents, domestic violence, neglect, abandonment, anxiety, fear, or even a simple lack of attunement from the primary caregiver. In fact, in our society, I think very few children are spared various adversities that inform how their personalities develop. In the early days of psychology, the conventional wisdom was that children naturally recover from their early traumas, but therapists these days often administer an adverse childhood's events test, commonly known as the ACE test, to get the root cause of their clients' issues. I certainly don't profess to know all the answers here, but I want to share a little of my own life experience because it is illustrative of the theme of this talk. As a young man, I was really insecure, and like most young people, was seeking an identity in which I could feel safe and fulfilled. Being the lead guitar player in a popular Washington, D.C. rock band was not enough, despite the ego gratification. So when I was introduced to yoga at the age of 20, with the prospect of becoming a yoga teacher, I jumped in with both feet. That quickly led to my adopting the Sikh religion and rising through the ranks of the American offshoot of that Eastern way of life. I eventually became quite prominent, a big fish in a very small pond, and for more than a decade, my role in the organization as an ordained minister of the Sikh religion seemed to provide for me a reasonably secure sense of identity. But it all fell apart when I realized that the leader of the organization, whom I had thought was a liberated spiritual being, was deeply flawed and corrupt. I saw it with my own eyes, and I couldn't stay. In 1987, I left the organization, walking away from everything that supported my adopted sense of identity. My friends, my titles, my turban and white clothes, even my family, for my 2 young girls were still at the organization's boarding school in India, where unbeknownst to me, they were suffering terrible mental, emotional, and physical abuse. But that is also another story. The bottom line is that I found myself at the age of 37 without a clue who I really was. Aside from the struggle to survive some really terrible financial setbacks, my life's focus was still very much aimed at finding the security of an authentic sense of identity. It has been a really long journey. What I discovered over time was that being vulnerable, honest, and accountable for my errors and shortcomings was actually incredibly liberating. Along the way, my wife, whom I met in 1995, and who has borne with me through some really tough times, studied to become a psychotherapist. This turned out to be enormously helpful for both of us. Last winter, at her suggestion, I enrolled in a certification training program to become a trauma recovery coach. I never thought of myself as having experienced childhood trauma. But as I dug more deeply into my family's history, in part by taking an adverse childhood events test, followed by several easily available online attachment quizzes that revealed in my earlier life I had an insecure and anxious attachment style, it was only then that I realized there were many aspects of my childhood that had left me feeling unsafe and uncared for on an emotional level. There's no need to delve into them here, except to note that although there was no overt trauma, such as ongoing domestic violence, there were enough things to explain many of the challenges I faced as a young adult. Then there was an added difficulty in my case, about which I had no awareness until a few years ago. Many, if not all, the members of my family exhibit signs of autism spectrum. High functioning, for sure, but as a family, we all had great difficulty in attuning to others and reading social cues. My father, Aunt Daphne's older brother, could entertain you endlessly with his jokes and stories, but he would rarely ask questions about someone else's life. And for those of you who knew and loved Daphne, I think you might agree that much the same could be said of her. My three oldest siblings displayed similar tendencies, and my next older brother was so socially awkward that many people felt really uncomfortable just being around him. I didn't know there was anything amiss, because that's what I grew up with, and I had no other point of reference until much later in my life. But as I read and studied and learned more, I came to realize that I too had significant challenges in being attuned to others. Although my wife has been generously pointing it out for years, I finally started to make, I think, some significant changes through involvement in the trauma recovery coaching program that I'm just about to graduate from. A major part of our coursework was in practice sessions with fellow students, and the experience really has been nothing short of transformational. Never before in my life had I experienced complete vulnerability and radical compassion within a group, completely free of judgment, completely free of criticism, completely free of ego and power trips and defensiveness. And I think I finally understood what had confused me about Jesus' term, turn the other cheek. It never made sense to me. Why would you turn the other cheek? But now I understand it to mean living without defensiveness, being transparent, being accountable. Because when you are able to do that, it inspires compassion, trust, attunement, and vulnerability in other people. I could say a lot more about it, but I'm going to cut it short with this observation. Healing within a sick society is possible. It simply requires people of goodwill to be attuned to each other, to listen and reflect back with compassion and understanding and a lack of judgment and condemnation, though not a lack of discernment, to ask questions, to draw each other out in a loving way, to support each other in a shared intention to foster emotional intelligence, to minimize reactivity and defensiveness, and to deliberately choose our words and actions within the ethical framework so clearly laid out in the 7 UU principles. You all know it's hard work, and it never ends until we have gone the last mile of the way, as my great-grandfather would say. And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Now what?
Thank you, Peter. And now it is time to take our offering. And today's offering, every month we give our offering to a charity with soul. We share it. We don't give the whole thing. And I don't know what the charity is. I forgot to look. So it is the Mid-Coast Hunger Prevention Project. It's right there. And Peter and Kurt. Welcome, Kurt. Thank you. We'll be playing the offertory. So please give as generously as you are able.
Beulah land, I long for Beulah land, where the angels sing together in the blessed land. I'll be standing on a firm foundation there in Beulah land. But when the storm clouds roll, they challenge my soul. They're trying to keep me from reaching up to the promised land. It's a long and narrow road that takes us to Beulah land. I got a mansion on a rock that is not built of sand. It's a house with many rooms that will forever stand. And there's an angel band in Beulah land. Beulah land, up in Beulah land, I'll join my friends and loved ones there in the promised land, where all the saints and sages gathered there are at God's command. Now when my time has come to leave this world, I will find my way back home up to Beulah land. All my troubles will be left behind when I'm in Beulah land. All around us toil and strife are always close at hand, but everlasting life awaits us there with all the saints in that promised land in Beulah land. I got a mansion on a rock that is not built of sand. It's a house with many rooms that will forever stand, and there's an angel band in Beulah land. Oh, in Beulah land.
Please join me in saying the congregational response to the offering. May these offerings sustain and grow the work of this church, weaving a tapestry of love and action. Thank you for your generosity. Peter will lead us in the closing hymn. Feel free to stand if you like. Renee are able.
And
You need to
dance,
stretch.
if you like. I just want to mention that I recorded all these hymns in Judd Caswell's studio, and you all know and love Judd, as I do. And the albums are back there. I'm donating them to the church, and they're donated to you guys. But if you would like to leave a donation in exchange, all the funds will be used to support new Mainers. So be generous. Okay. So you'll figure this one out pretty quick. Okay, here we go. Higher, 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 higher. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I'm pressing on the upward way. New heights I'm gaining every day. Still praying as I'm onward bound, Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's tableland, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Now sing it. Higher, 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 higher. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. My heart has no desire to stay where doubts arise and fears dismay. Some may dwell where those abound. My prayer, my aim is higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's tableland, the higher plane that I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Here it is now, come on. Higher, 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 higher. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I want to live above the world, though Satan's darts at me are hurled. Faith has caught the joyful sound, the song of saints on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's tableland, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Sing it higher, 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 higher. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I want to scale the utmost height and catch a gleam of glory bright. Still I pray till heaven's found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's tableland, the higher plane that I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Sing it higher, higher, higher.
Today's closing words are by Sam Trumbore. Go forth in simplicity. Go forth in simplicity, find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. Please rise and greet your neighbors.
Did it.
That was fun.